Okay, so welcome to Lab 18. We're going to be doing a few miscellaneous tasks like adding in a RDM type drive and mapping it, reallocating space, and things of that nature. This is for my VMware Vshpere 6 class. So first thing we have to do is let's go ahead and add a 12 gig hard drive. We're going to call it RDM. So we're on our VC. We're going to be adding in another hard drive, hard disk. SCSI's fine. We're going to be creating a new virtual disk, yes. We're going to have a 12 gig hard disk. We're going to call this one RDM. And that's it. So let's go ahead and get into our vCenter. Let's go ahead and get this one squared away. Storages. Let's rescan. So it hasn't popped up just yet. So I'm going to go ahead and go to disks. Oh, there it is. It's offline, so I'm going to go ahead and bring it online. We're going to go ahead and prep it and new volume. $12 gigs is fine. We're going to give it drive letter R. We're going to name this one. It should be called RDM. And go ahead and create. Once we've done that, let's go ahead and get into StarWinds. We're adding a new target. We're going to be doing a hard disk, a basic virtual disk. We're going to be doing a image file. Be creating a new one. The name and storage, we're going to store it on R. And we're going to call it rdm.img for our image. We're going to go ahead and make this 10 gigs. Make sure the storage location is correct. No caching. The alias will be called RDM. You can go ahead and do the target if you want. Next. And now we have our RDM set up on our SAN. Alright, so once we've done that, so RDM is a raw device mapping. So let's go ahead and get into our vCenter. I actually did the integration plugin so I can use my single sign-on. If you didn't, go ahead and log into it. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and map this to our Windows 7 machine. So host and clusters. Let's go ahead and go to our E732C machine. It should be powered off. Go and right click on it, edit settings. We're going to be adding a new device, so new hard drive. Because we are doing a RDM, first thing we need to do is, once we get in here, host and clusters, we need to rescan our data store for ESXi1. So, manage, storage adapter, rescan. You should now see a fourth device, and that's what we wanted. Navigate back to the E732C. We're going to edit its settings. We're going to be adding in a new RDM disk. And there we go. So once you've done that, select your 10 gig drive, and there we go. Click OK, let it process the task. Go ahead and power on your newly created, or not your newly created, but your VM with a new hard drive. Power, let's go ahead and power it on. Once the power is on, let's go ahead and go to our console. This is going to take a few minutes, so again, be patient. Okay, so once that's done, let's go ahead and in our Windows 7 32-bit C machine, we're going to go ahead and go to Disk Manager. We're going to make sure that we can see the newly created drive, and there it is. We're going to go ahead and create a new simple volume. 10 gigs is fine. Drive letter of E is fine. Go ahead and give it a new label. I'm going to call it extra drive. And this is a mapping to that raw disk. So we're not setting up a portion of a disk. We literally just give it the entire disk. 10 gigs, give it a second, and you should now have your fully created E drive. Let's make a new folder there just to make sure that it saves, and it does. And so that was actually the big part here. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of E drive. So here we have a C drive and a E drive. Notice our C drive only has 16 gigs worth of data. Well, is that enough space? Right now we're using we're using almost over half the space just on a Windows installation. So we need to go ahead and increase the space for this volume. So what we're going to do is go back to vCenter. On the fly, we're going to go ahead and edit the settings for E732C. We're going to go ahead and pump this guy up to 25 gigs. Click OK. Let it reconfigure. Hop back into our VM, back to Disk Manager, and let's refresh. There we have our unallocated space. So let's go ahead and extend our volume. The only disk that's available. Next, give it a second and it will expand. That way, when you have a VM that runs out of space, you can always add more space, assuming you have the additional hard drive space to give it. So, do keep that in mind. All right, one last thing before we get done here. I'm going to go back to computer. I want to go to Device Manager. I want to go to processors. Notice we have one processor, and that's it. So just keep that in mind for a later lab. So let's go ahead and turn off our E732C. So what happens when we actually want to take our thin provision drive and we want to increase its space? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait till it powers off. Okay, now that it's off, we're going to be looking at how to inflate a disk. So first I'm going to do my E732C. I'm going to go to its primary storage, which is iSCSI1. You may get a storage because, again, we're going to run really tight on space with this. So I'm going to go ahead and reset the acknowledgement to green. But what I want to do is I actually want to browse files. With our E732C, this one is thick provisioned, and you'll see that it uses the full amount of space. And so if you click on the VMDK, you can't do anything. You can't inflate it because it's already thick. Let's go to iSCSI2. In iSCSI2, we have our E732B, which happens to be thin provisioned. We actually have an inflate option. Inflate will change this from thin to thick. We don't want to do it. I just wanted to point out that you could. Let's go back to our hosts. I'm looking at specifically ESXi1. I want to be editing my E732C. I want to be able to, on the fly, add, on the fly, memory and processing power. So I want to be able to hot add these resources. So I'm going to my E732 machine. I'm going to edit settings. I'm going to go to my VM option tab. And in Vsphere 555, the hot add options are under here, but in 6, everything is under virtual hardware. So I'm going to expand out virtual CPU, and I want to enable CPU hot add. I also want to do the same thing for memory. The memory hot plug is checked. So once we've done that, let's power on our machine. Which is really weird because you have to turn on these features, but these are turned off by default. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to modify it while it's running. But we're going to wait till it's fully logged in and everything before we get that far. So it's loading Windows now. It's logging into Windows. Has one processor, has the 2 gigs of RAM, and that's it. Let's go ahead and let's modify it. Edit settings. We're going to change this to CPU sockets. We're going to change this to 2. Let it prep the task. Let's get back to our VM. If you lose connection, that's okay. Let's go ahead and reopen the console. It still shows 1. Let's go into our task, or not our task manager. Let's go into our device manager and let's see what it says. It does show 2. Task manager will eventually update. So the next thing is let's do the same thing for memory. I'm going to go from 2 gigs to 4 gigs. Okay, apparently not. We'll go to 3 gigs. Let it reconfigure itself. We will lose connection to our console. That's pretty normal. Go back into our console. Again, it's still showing 2 gigs, so I'm going to close out of it and go back into it. And it does refresh to our 3 gigs. Open up Task Manager just to make sure it is showing the appropriate amount of memory. So it does work. The processor gets a little bit kind of funky, but it will eventually refresh to have both processors there. Let's go ahead and convert everything back. We're going to change it back down to 1. Notice it doesn't let you. Hot add only allows you to add it. To remove them, you actually have to power the machines back off. And that's what I'm going to do. Okay, once it's powered off, I'm going to edit it back. Yeah, hot add only allows you to add it, doesn't allow you to remove it. I'm going to put it back down to 2 gigs. Let it reconfigure. And that was the end of this lab. So again, the point of this lab was to do 2 things. Show you how to do raw disk mapping and to show you how to enable hot add features. That's it.